Our panelists here are going to talk about loyalty today and have diverse experiences and are going to dig into not only the technology side, but also the human side and the why behind loyalty projects. So, I do believe the bar will stay open during the panel just for emergency situations. But I will go ahead and pass it on to our moderator, Dirk. Dirk is a principal technology consultant here at Reactor. Besides his expertise in moderating panels, he has led technology projects for a couple different loyalty initiatives. International Airlines Group, PVH to name a couple. And his approach to technology is to not only try to find a scalable tech solution, but also focus on real business outcomes. So with that, I will hand it over to Dirk.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So, Emma, I don't know, I don't have the iPad, but I got my notes here. Don't worry about it. I want to introduce my panelists. I got on the right Jordan Bowery from Michael Kors. I don't know what your exact title is without my notes.
Neither do I.
You're the Director of Global CRM and Loyalty. Welcome.
Thanks.
Then we got Rashi Hashia, the VP of CRM, Loyalty and Insights at Veronica Beard.
Thank you.
Welcome. And on my left, we got Kara Nishida, the Director of CX for In-Flight Entertainment and Connectivity. Welcome as well. And finally, Phil McGay, the Vice President of Loyalty Sales at MasterCard.
That's correct.
That's correct. Welcome, everyone. So, loyalty is it's a very broad space to me. I think I've been working on a lot of different loyalty projects, but they've all been very different. And I think one thing that's very interesting about your approach at Veronica Beard is that you don't have sort of like the traditional earn and burn program. When I think about loyalty, I often think about spending points, getting points, but you don't do that. You have a thing called clienteling. Can you tell us something about what that is and how it works?
Definitely. And I think it all depends on the business and their customer, first and foremost. So is your customer going to find value in the loyalty program you're putting forth in front of them? Is a points program going to make sense for them? For Veronica Beard, it does not make sense for her. So our loyalty version is a clienteling approach. Clienteling is really just identifying who your best customers are and building a relationship with them on not only a communication level, but as a personal level to keep them loyal with you. So for Veronica Beard, it all started in the stores. The store associates were identifying who the top clients were. They were keeping in touch with them over text on their own phones, bringing them back, making suggestions on next purchases, recommending new products, telling them when the sale is on. And that just then grew to, okay, how can we take it further? Yes, that's happening and that is successful. We know these customers keep coming back and spending with us, but we need to track it better. We need to feed it with more data and make life easier for our store associates. So we then partnered with a new POS system which had an inbuilt clienteling program, which is New Store, and we now use that across the board at Veronica Beard. It is definitely easier to track who they're clienteling with it. It is easier to track what the sales are from those customers who they're clienteling with and illustrate the value of clienteling to the rest of the stores. So that has really helped us. And I think the next phase of this would be to just take it to the digital world. So that's where we're focused now. But clienteling has proved to be very, very beneficial for the brand. And with New Store now, we can actually tell them, okay, these are the new customers you should reach out to. We give them lists. These are the e-com customers you should reach out to, then bring them into the store to give them a more personal experience. And the whole purpose is to just give them a very personalized experience in the store and make it more memorable for them.
Very interesting. Can you maybe, I've never been targeted for clienteling in a store. Can you maybe explain or walk me through like how would that work if I enter a store? Is it very transparent that people are using my data and talking about what, or is it very subtle, or how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, our store associates are trained to build that rapport with the customer. So when the customer walks through the door, they're all talking to them about, okay, what's coming up? Are you shopping for an event? What's happening in your life? So it's not just data we're collecting through their transactions. It's information we're gathering through the conversations with them that is helping fuel this program further. And then yes, there is a lot of consent that is required. We are not allowed to communicate with these customers until they actively opt in. So it is all through text. And the first text is, do you agree to receive messages from us? Yeah.
Very interesting. How do you see this evolving for Victoria Beard? Like, how do you expand on this concept? Do you need more data to do more, or how does it work?
Yeah, I think from a behavioral standpoint, we have a lot of data, right? It's how do we make it consumable for the store associates to then make sure they have the data at their fingertips to then action on it. So it's, yes, sending them, flags for customers saying this is a new customer, this has a customer who has a birthday coming up. But then, like I mentioned, the next step would be to take it to the digital world. We do this really well in stores, but how do we make that experience even memorable for our e-commerce customer who may not necessarily want to go to a store? So that's the next level that we're now diving into and figuring out how we make that happen.
That's actually a very nice bridge to something I want to ask you, Jordan, because you seem to have a lot more channels that you're deploying your loyalty program in at Michael Kors. Like, can you walk us through what channels you have and what strategies you've deployed to make your program omnichannel?
Yeah, so from a channel standpoint, we obviously have the basic ones of in-store, online, through all marketing channels. Email is crucial for us. We have a mobile app. We have an associate app. We have SMS. We want loyalty to touch all of our channels. I think the way we've enabled this across the business is really to think customer-centric. I think we think of things internally as channels sometimes, but really the customer thinks of us as Michael Kors wherever they're interacting with us. So I think really taking that strategic view of the customer and putting them at the heart of what we do was really key for us to start. The second thing was data, and I think it's kind of similar to what Rashi was saying, was centralizing the data and making sure we have that single view of the customer, so that then with all these channels that we have at our disposal, making sure they have the most up-to-date information about the customer in a very consumable way, which has been a challenge, to be honest. But making sure we can do that has enabled us to personalize that experience across wherever the customer comes to us.
Right. So it's not just different channels, but also you're a very global brand. You had a loyalty program probably all around the world. Is there some approach you're taking to customizing your loyalty program for different areas around the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our loyalty program, the customer-facing loyalty program, is currently live in the US and Canada. Originally, it's been live in the US since, I believe, 2018, and we just launched Canada last year. Canada was our first pilot to see, can we export this globally? Does the same program work in other markets? So we decided to test it in Canada, and already we see there needs to be regional variation, right? The customers are different culturally, purchasing behaviors, so we already see that need for regionalization. China has their own program as well, which is a bit less kind of official, of like a structured program, but they still have one. International expansion is one of the things I'm most excited about with the loyalty program. As a Brit, I'm really excited to export it to Europe and have them experience the benefits of Kors VIP. So really excited to do that. The approach we've taken is roll it out in Canada first to see what works, and then we're going to do a lot of research and let the data guide how we roll it out across the other markets. A lot of customer insights, customer research, and using our existing data.
Right. Yeah, I imagine there's a big cultural difference between different areas, and they would want to have the different things from a loyalty program, and it's easy to to sort of go out and copy your loyalty program, but then it wouldn't work in these other areas necessarily.
Yeah, that's definitely one of our considerations.
Right.
Yeah.
So how you get to these other areas is, of course, by plane. I just
where
scooped
I
that
come
one
in.
up.
Great segue.
Right. So, Kara, you just launched a new part of your loyalty program called Delta Sync. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I've heard it's very successful. What kind of impact has it had and what is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched our Delta Sync products, which is our new suite of personalized travel experiences. The first two products we launched are Delta Sync Wi-Fi and Delta Sync Seatback. So I'll talk a little bit about Delta Sync Wi-Fi. So we are offering fast free Wi-Fi to SkyMiles members across the US. So all you need to do is be a SkyMiles member and you log in, and what we offer you is curated content and offers, experiences that are just for you, whether from Delta or from our brand partners. In terms of impact, it's been pretty exciting. So we have acquired 2 million new SkyMiles members since launch, and we launched in February of 2023. So if you think about it, those are 2 million customers that were already flying Delta, but we had no idea who they were. Now that they're SkyMiles members, we can target them, we can curate and tailor for them, we can collect preferences and data. So it's truly exciting and truly huge. And almost taking a step back, and we've been on this journey with our Reactor partners for some time, but it really started out with the need to create a more at-home experience for our customers. We like to call it the living room in the sky. So if you think about it, you're at home, you're used to reliable Wi-Fi that works. You're used to entertainment options that are curated for you. You're used to scrolling on your phone, maybe checking social or shopping Michael Kors. And while you're watching a movie that's been recommended to you from your smart TV. And customers want that same experience in the sky. They want that reliable Wi-Fi, and they want that entertainment options that are tailored to you. And how we unlock those and how we deliver them to the customer is by doing that for our SkyMiles members. So it's been really exciting in terms of the success metrics you mentioned. In addition to the 2 million new SkyMiles members, we have had 45 million streaming quality Wi-Fi sessions since launch. We are on over 670 aircraft today, and by the end of 2025, we're going to be on all 1,200 of Delta's planes, which is no small feat to do all of that installation and engineering work, which is really exciting. We've also seen a couple of interesting things have come about. So in addition to being a large acquisition channel for new SkyMiles members, the value of those members is really important to us. On average, they're 5 to 7 years younger than our normal new member. So if you think about the lifetime value of a customer, right, that's an additional 5 to 7 years of value, which is pretty cool. So we're definitely thrilled by the results and excited to be partnering with Reactor on that.
Yeah, that's a thing that people don't realize about these loyalty programs in airplanes. It's much harder to deploy them, right? It's like you can't just go out and update an airplane.
I wish it were that easy.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, another thing we've seen a lot recently in the loyalty space is partnerships, and that's also something you're doing, right? I think you've been partnering with different companies on your loyalty program. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's right. So in our Delta Sync products, we've created a new ecosystem of partners. So we are looking for partners that want to offer something unique and exclusive that customers can only receive on board. So we did a lot of research to understand what customers want to do while they're on board. Thinking through a partner has to make sense in the context of where the customer is at. And so interestingly, one of the things, you guys can probably resonate with this, that customers want to do while they fly is watch entertainment. You want to sit back, relax, and enjoy a movie or discover a new show. And so we partnered with Paramount Plus to deliver this really unique experience for our SkyMiles members in flight. So you simply have to log in to our Delta Sync Wi-Fi, and then you can access Paramount Plus and stream in that moment on board and for 24 hours after your flight for free. No credit card required, no gimmicks, anything like that. You can just enjoy Paramount Plus and their full library of content, and you can do that every time you fly. So it's been interesting. So for us, of course, we have a loyalty program that is deeply rooted in miles, collecting miles for your next trip. What we're now offering is this in-the-moment benefit for customers, a tangible benefit while they're flying or directly after they're flying, which has been really exciting. And the results have been great. Paramount Plus has been a wonderful partner to us. The product is really resonating with customers, again, offering them something that is unique and you can only find on board. So it's been great.
I watched some Paramount on the way here.
What
on the
did
Delta
you watch?
flight.
Anything good?
It was good, yeah. Phil, you seem to be in a unique position with MasterCard because you are partnering with different loyalty programs, but you also have your own loyalty program. So you seem to be sort of like omnipresent in the loyalty space. Therefore, maybe you have like good insights around sort of like global trends around loyalty program. Is there any new trends you're seeing from where you're standing?
You know, I don't know if it's new trends, but it's definitely doubling down on some trends that we're already talking about. But you are right. When you think about MasterCard, right, we have transaction data. And we have a unique point of view because we also power some of the world's largest loyalty programs. But it does start with the consumer, right? And it's what the consumer wants. And really, when you think about consumers, they're looking for brands that not only provide them the right, that are looking to understand who they are and what they want at a simplistic level. Right? And on top of that, they're always going to look for brands that provide a compelling value proposition, right? And what's interesting too is that, you know, I guess some of the three main areas what a consumer wants, in our opinion, at least my opinion, is value, convenience, and utility. Value, convenience, and utility when you're looking at some of those emerging trends of some of the consumers out there. But on top of that, and this is my own personal opinion, we're talking about forward-looking trends, you're starting to see a lot of the loyalty programs look the same. Right? A lot of that earn and burn is becoming almost a commodity out there in a lot of ways too. And we're starting to see that with some of the loyalty programs and the performance of those. When you look at some of the programs that are starting to really hyper-focus on personalization and experience, what we're talking about, those are the ones that are getting out the gates a little bit quicker with their loyalty success metrics and seeing some stronger results. You know, it's about getting that right message at the right time in front of the right consumer, right? And that takes technology. It really does nowadays. It does take the right tech stack and understanding what's important from a measurement perspective with that tech stack to make sure that you're providing those personalized experience for those consumers. So at a high level, right, we're just seeing the brands that are, I don't want to say getting away from earn and burn, because that's still important, especially with the wallet impact, right, and going on with inflation, the economy. People still want to save money, but combining that with hyper-personalization, combining that with kind of experiential loyalty program, like our friends on my panelists are doing right now with their brands, is creating that, you know, kind of that success metric that we're seeing really above and beyond traditional loyalty programs. So that's kind of one of the bigger trends, I would say, and it's nothing new, right? Hyper-personalization, experience, but the brands that are really cracking that code well are the ones that we're seeing from performance metrics, really getting that lifetime value figured out.
It's maybe not new, but it's hard to do right, I think, right? So you're talking about this data problem. It's very often the data is very scattered around the organization. To actually execute on these things, that's a whole other game often.
It absolutely is. And I think, you know, I was talking about this with actually quite a few people when we were hanging out, is that you have this data, how do you monetize it? How do you action off of that? And that's a real problem right now. And technology, and especially a well-integrated solution, a well-integrated tech stack, allows you to have that ability to have your technology speak together so you can have that 360-degree view of that customer. You know, when you're thinking about loyalty programs, we're talking about in-store. Right? In the retail space, that's really important. You got to not only have an understanding of your e-commerce channels, your app channels, but you also got to train the people inside your stores to embrace the consumer of the loyalty program and help them understand, you know, the full value of that loyalty program, right? And as you're collecting data points as you're doing that as well. So you're absolutely correct. I mean, data is imperative, and understanding, and we can go into a whole panel discussion about the importance of technology in the loyalty program. But, you know, to your point, it is really important. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's to me it's also very interesting. You have all this data, you want to achieve certain goals, but all these across different industries, you can have different goals, I think, for your loyalty program and different ways to measure success. And it's actually quite hard, I think, to measure success in these programs. There's often sort of like, yeah, very superficial things you can measure, but to actually do it right, you would need to go into A/B testing and all these kind of strategies. So how are you looking at that? How are you looking at setting your goals for your loyalty program? And how are you measuring success?
I can start, I guess.
Yeah, anyone can take it.
So we look at it a couple of ways. I think at the micro level, we're focused on our product engagement. So the products I mentioned, the Delta Sync Wi-Fi, as well as our Delta Sync Seatback experience. So how are customers engaging with that product? What are they clicking on? What are they watching? How much time are they spending? You know, and what is their sentiment around that? That's sort of the micro. And then the macro is really a lot around customer retention, around growing customer loyalty, growing new members, you know, becoming really top of mind, and having these products become a reason that customers choose Delta over another airline. So we look at both the micro and the macro factors.
I think ours is very similar. We look at it in three ways, just because loyalty touches so many teams across the organization. So there's customer, so retention, lifetime value, acquisition, all of that good stuff. There's obviously business, is this driving incremental revenue to the business, and ultimately that's what finance cares about. But then also from an engagement standpoint, we do a lot of qualitative research as well to understand how are people engaging, what are they enjoying about the program, where can we improve? So we have a whole, our analytics team have a whole research lab around that. So they'll love that I shouted that out as well.
It's very similar across the board. I think we've focused on driving retention rate at the higher level of amongst our best customers, LTV, so are they spending more when they're coming back? And then, of course, incremental impact to the business, like Jordan mentioned. But I would just like to add that measuring that incrementality is very hard, especially when you have a program that's already in place. So the way we would do it, if there's a new benefit you're trying, then you measure, you A/B test that to understand what the incremental impact is. But then showing the value of a member versus a non-member, a customer who's clienteled versus not clienteled, to really illustrate that.
Yeah, someone once told me the best time to start measuring this is before you launch the program, because then you still have an opportunity to actually segment between people who are in it or not, and afterwards everyone is in it, and then it becomes very muddy. Jordan, are you saying you have like a separate team? You mentioned a lab that's actually doing the measuring, and how does the results of that lab feed back into the program?
We have a separate analytics team who we partner with very closely. And they have what they call a research lab. So it's a ongoing customer insights and survey program where we'll survey existing customers, people who are not our customers, and around different questions each month for different things around the brand. And we include loyalty as part of that fairly regularly.
Right. Phil, I think for you, the goals must be multifaceted because you're participating in so many ways in these programs. Is that right?
Yeah, and we, as part of our service at MasterCard, we do some consulting too, strategy consulting, which a big component of that is understanding what the goal is, understanding what your KPIs are. And that can be evolving, right? And I think the goal is to at least figure out what you're trying to achieve, how are we going to measure, and then how are we going to test it? To your point, measuring incrementality is really tough, right? I've been trying to crack that code for 10 years, and this isn't a plug, I promise, but we have a service test and learn, and that's a complex piece of software that is all around understanding incrementality, right? Are we evaluating all the external variables could be impacting that consumer behavior? Are we isolating those variables and making sure we understand what is truly moving the needle or not? And it does take quite a bit of collaboration across the different departments in your technology to make sure you're measuring it, but it's critical. You have to do it, right? Because finance, you brought up finance as an example, but also you got to understand what good's like, and you got to be able to grow with it too. So, I mean, the importance of understanding what your goals are and how you're measuring them is imperative for any loyalty success. And just making sure you're optimizing quarter over quarter, year over year. What are those metrics? Are we going towards the right ones, et cetera, is something that, is very imperative for any brand, in my opinion.
Right, and you're using a product called Test and Learn from that. Is that something that you developed internally, or how does that work?
Yeah, it was an acquisition for MasterCard, a company called APT. Okay. But yeah, the brand, the product is called Test and Learn. But the whole point of it, obviously the name is not just a clever name, right? Yeah, you test what you're looking to do, and you're learning from that, and then on top of that, just helping you measure the impact of your efforts, which is kind of become kind of a backbone for a lot of the loyalty programs. Just making sure you guys know as marketers, right, the importance of it. So,
right. So then you set the goals for your program, and then you're down to implementing it. But then you come onto sort of obstacles. You already mentioned that it's hard to deploy on airplanes. But what other things have you struggled with when actually implementing these programs?
I think at Veronica Beard, we're a very lean team, and we're a fairly new brand. It's a growing team. So for us, challenges always come down to people, time, resources. How do we prioritize this against everything else that the business needs to do? And we have a lot on our plate that we want to do because we have aggressive goals. We are growing fast. We can grow faster. So I think just getting that buy-in to prioritize what you want to achieve, illustrating the value of it, and then getting the buy-in at the executive level to support it with the resources you need.
I think my answer is very similar around buy-in. Maybe not from a resourcing standpoint, but I think when I started in the US a few years ago and we got this loyalty program, it didn't have the best rep. And it was really about how do we turn that around and get investment into this program that has a great framework, but maybe needs a bit of PR and some love. So it was really kind of how do we get that internal buy-in to consider investing in this program. And luckily we were able to do that, but I think that was the challenging thing. There are so many teams that are involved in it, and making sure everyone feels that it's a success was challenging, but everyone was really receptive. So we've got a lot of good partners that we work with, so I'm really thankful for that.
So are you saying that once you had the buy-in, like actually creating the program was sort of like the lesser part of it? Because like I feel like for a lot of the projects that I've been in and I've seen working on these loyalty programs, they've been very complicated to implement actually because they touch so many parts of the organization. But maybe you haven't experienced that.
It's complicated for sure, and I think to your point, it touches so many different teams. But I think it's, believe it or not, we're a very rational business at times, and I think if it demonstrates value, people will invest in it, and I think then we'll get the support to do what we need to do. So I think once we were able to demonstrate the value that the program was driving, the investment became a no-brainer at that point.
Right, right.
I think for us, one of the big challenges has been data. So getting the right data in the right channel and then using it in the right way. So Delta is turning 100 next year. So if you can imagine the thousands of programs and applications that have been developed over the many, many years we've been in existence and how our back-end tech stack is pieced together, it could use some updates, right? And so that has been a challenge for us. I will say, to Delta's credit, we have been investing heavily in tech infrastructure. We are moving all of our infrastructure to the cloud via AWS, and we'll have that completed by the end of this year. We're also investing heavily in data architects, analysts, but it has been a real challenge for us, and we're just scratching the surface to be able to truly get down to that single view of the customer and have data no matter whether you call our reservations line and need some help, or you've had a bad trip experience, or you've used the Wi-Fi. We were able to piece that all together so our people can better serve our customers in real time. So it's definitely a journey. We are making progress, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, I think the executive buy-in is key, right? And I think, when you're working with brands, and you got to make sure you have that endorsement from the executive suite, because revamping or launching a loyalty program is not an easy thing, right? There's a lot of moving parts, to your point. There's the implementation from the business side and the technology side, and both of them are difficult, right? Because accounting, finance, they have their own things they're measured on, right? And then you got to be cognizant of when you're actually developing and deploying a loyalty program. And then from your marketing team, right? Not only in-store, online, et cetera, right? You got to have that omni-channel strategy as well. And it's a lift. It's a lift, and it takes time too. So it's that expectation of like, all right, what are our objectives? How are we going to achieve them, et cetera? And let's get alignment across the business, starting with executive buy-in. The technology element of the implementation can be very complex as well. And you got to have a good partner that understands the ecosystem, if you're not familiar with it, to help you navigate that process. Whether CRM, talking to your CDP, talking to think of your acronym, ESP, whatever you want, right? They all have to be able to communicate together because the underlying data is important. If you have bad data hygiene, right, and you don't think about that if you develop your implementation, you're starting off on the wrong foot. You might have a great program, but you can't measure the success because the data isn't clean. And we've seen that a lot of times when we're coming in and helping out where, the CRM's not talking to the CDP, the unique customer ID is slightly off, et cetera, and they need to reorganize that to make sure that they are quantifying the value of the program a little bit better too. And again, that starts with complex technical integrations as well. So not an easy fit, not something easy to do, but working with the right partners, it is something that a lot of companies can do and are doing, frankly.
Yeah, like a data team likes to say, garbage in, garbage out. Right?
Preach it.
So it is really important.
Yeah, I think a good data strategy is key to not just a loyalty program, but it's also an enabler for all sorts of other things, right? Once you have that in order, you can start building other products and other services on top of it. But if you don't have it in order, you'll always be struggling to implement anything because data is sort of like the raw resource to build any product in your digital product in your organization.
Well, especially with like Gen AI coming down the road, et cetera, like you got to have that clean data, right? Because it's going to help. It's going to be the circle effect, right? The better data you have, the better experience you're going to provide, the better retention you're going to get. Then you're going to get even more data, et cetera. So, I mean, you're 100% correct. It's imperative.
Right. So another thing that I'm curious about is like there's a new generation, Gen Z, there's millennials, and they have different desires out of these loyalty programs, different expectations. They want sustainability, they want authenticity. Is there anything you're doing to catering to this new audience, basically?
I can start with that. Yeah. So millennials are our customer, Gen Z not so much, but millennials, yes. And yes, I think what we've learned through our studies, we do a fair amount of surveys as well, and just understanding the customer through our conversations is they want transparency into our business practices. They want to make sure that we are following sustainable practices in production. We have a purpose as a business. So that is something that Veronica Beard has embraced from the beginning. We have a charitable arm of the team, which is constantly organizing events and donations and things like that. But also we are trying very hard to be transparent in terms of what's the source of the fabric, where is it coming from, what's the content, things like that, in our imagery, in our copy, everywhere.
Yeah, I imagine that isn't even traditionally considered a loyalty program, but it's definitely part of creating loyalty with your customers.
Exactly. If you want to keep them, you got to talk to them the way they want to.
Exactly.
What we've seen is we're really shifting from traditional marketing channels to more digital and more experiences. So in terms of digital, talking about that connectivity, that fast free Wi-Fi, the personalized seatback entertainment experience, these are all products that are really tailored towards a younger generation. And in terms of experiences, our marketing team has really shifted towards offering unique opportunities for our Sky Miles members, whether that's a hospitality lounge at South by Southwest, or actually we had a Delta Sync experience here in New York over the holidays. But the whole idea is offering these unique and exclusive events and experiences where you can bring customers in, you can interact one-on-one, and they could really take something away from it. We found we've had a lot of success with those demographics.
I think with us, we're still digging into it. I think for us, the data was the most important thing we needed to get right, and understanding at the moment what do Gen Zs and millennials actually like about our brand, so that we know what to lean into and kind of go forward with. So I think we're still figuring that out. I think we have invested a lot in environmental stuff and social commitment and sustainability, which we know resonates, but we're still working on that. I think there's a lot we can do. There's a lot we do. We have a great brand and great brand equity that allows us to resonate with younger customers, which I think has been great. We're really trying to figure out how to double down and really go after it.
Yeah, I imagine you'll have to think really out of the box to actually get away from sort of like the traditional structure of a loyalty program and create that loyalty with these clients. Yeah, so before I open it up to the audience, I was thinking like, what do you see as the future of loyalty? Like, how do you see the whole space evolving beyond what we currently are doing?
I'll go then. I think the thing that I've seen, and especially with what we see from our customers, is really a pivot. We've all talked about it, is pivoting away from that kind of transactional loyalty program more to be experiential, and I think that's what our customers want. I think it's less about earn and burn. Our program doesn't do that, but it's less about that. And of course, they want the discounts as well, but I think it's more about what experiences we can provide them that's different between our loyalty members and non-loyalty members. I think Phil was mentioning it earlier. So it's a value exchange at the end of the day, and how we provide that is it needs to be disproportionate value provided to the consumer for them to want to give us their data and be a loyal member with us.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned, or I mentioned in my first comment about the emerging trends of the loyalty space, and to your point, it's doubling down on personalization experiences and the cleverness behind that, right? Like, how are you going to take virtual reality and incorporate loyalty into that, or cryptocurrency, and so it's never going to be a dull moment in the space of loyalty as it evolves. But I think again, experiential and personalization is going to be a continued trend because of the Gen Zs of the world. They grew up in this space, right? They grew up with brands that are already figuring this out, the Amazons, the Ubers, et cetera, of the world, right? And so they're expecting this from their brands. And so they expect you to kind of tailor to them. They expect you to speak to them at that one-to-one level. And so I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. And brands really got to double down on that initiative while collecting data in the right way to make sure that that continues as well. So I think that's going to be the forefront there. Now, what I don't know is what's going to be that new, very interesting initiative or trend that's going on in the loyalty space. And I'm excited for myself to see what that is. But needless to say, I do think it's just going to continue with the personalization and experiential aspect of loyalty.
Yeah, completely agree. I think personalization and the hyper-personalization really, but also bringing in a human touch to it is where we are looking at, right? So yes, we have all this data on the customer based on how they interact with the website, how they interact in the stores, but can we also have data that'll power those experiences? So can we have information like what's the event coming up in her life? What's the next thing that she's traveling for? Where's her next vacation? And have that available for the people delivering this experience for the customer.
Yeah, I imagine it's very hard to get that data, but it's very valuable if you have it and you can make it very personal in that way.
Well, and loyalty programs are a mechanism to get the data, obviously, as well. And there's very specific tactics and strategies organizations to think about how they're going to collect data the right way so it doesn't put out the consumer, because that is important. It's almost helping them help you help them, right? And brands got to think through that.
I think for us, you guys have touched on the big things, right? Experience and personalization. But one other trend that we're looking at is one of the questions that you mentioned around bringing in partnerships, right? So it's not just about your brand and what you can offer, but the ecosystem of partners you create that want to be a part of your brand, that want to offer things to your loyalty members, things that are unique and special and they couldn't find elsewhere. So that's something that I think we'll see continue.
I believe so as well. Okay, so I want to open it up to the audience. I think my colleague Dan there has a microphone. Any questions for our panelists?
This was a reoccurring theme in kind of the conversation. I love the garbage in, garbage out analogy, and also talking about clienteling. There's so many in-person touch points to engage with a customer to collect data. And I think, Phil, you just kind of commented on this of it's very important to make sure that you're activating the customer and kind of getting as much data as possible from them, but it has to be authentic and it has to be right and it has to be incentivized. I think one of the challenges that a lot of brands have is gaps in their data of just getting the bare minimum. What are some of the best practices that you guys have had to really challenge and activate the customer in the right way so that they're giving you that information? As you're talking about upcoming weddings, you might be able to get that in an interaction in store where you're talking one-on-one and you're building that into your notes about the customer. But from a scalable perspective, how are you kind of incentivizing customers to give you a little bit more without being intrusive?
Yeah, no, we're not doing that yet, but I think there's huge opportunity to do that, right? So in the perfect world, all those notes that the stores are entering into their system would flow into the data warehouse. We've done a whole lot of work to build that single view of the customer. So have that identity resolution that's collecting data from stores, e-commerce, and then also surveys, feeding into it, things like that. But I think the dream is to get those personal information. Otherwise, the stores just use it as and when they know it, right?
I think one thing we've done, I think that's a really great question. One thing we've done is similar to what Rashi was saying. Once you have everything in one place, all the data in one place, you can see what the gaps are. And I think what that allowed us to do is push experiences out to all the individual channels to then go and collect that data. So progressive profiling has been a really big push for us. So in our welcome series, and if you sign up to emails, what other data points can we get about you that we know are important? So for our loyalty program, birthdays are really important. So we ask for that up front. If we're signing someone up in store through clienteling, can we ask them for that? We also run programs through our POS as well. When you capture data in stores, there's a pop-up that comes up that says, this customer doesn't have a birthday, why don't you go and add it? And so finding all those touch points in all the channels to just do a bit of progressive profiling is how we've closed some of those gaps.
Yeah, I've also seen a lot of clients actually reward people in the loyalty program themselves for providing the data, right? So you can create this loop basically of providing data, rewarding people, and enriching what you got.
It's a good idea. I might take that one.
Yeah, and I was going to say that, there's to your point, it's got to be authentic, right? You can't just be like, give me your date of birth. Where do you live? Right? You can't do that. You gotta reward them in a lot of ways. You gotta have that right carrot there, but you can also make it fun. You can do like gamification. You can do surveys, right? Where you can, figure out ways to, make it rewarding for them to give you that information too. They want that reciprocity. I think where we're seeing a lot of days with consumers is, especially the younger generation, they're more than happy to give you their data, right? But you got to get their data in a way that makes them feel like you're getting value in return. And if you can crack that specific to your brand's consumers, then that's how you're going to really unlock through a loyalty program is a great mechanism, not the only one, but a great mechanism to do it. You're going to get that data again, so you can start down that hyper-personalization, experiential kind of strategy there as well. You brought up a really good point with the loyalty program being a mechanism for that.
We got a question here in the front and one in the back.
The lone person in the front.
All right, so my question is, I think all of you did a great job of understanding like where you can start from with the data, what you can do with it, how you can like make it fun and bring people along for the ride. So how do you determine, okay, we've gotten to the point where we've gotten to with our customers. This is the total amount of wallet share that we're gonna get from them, and we have to find the next set of experiences that are similar to us or brand adjacent. Like I'm a Delta member.
Thank you for your loyalty.
You're welcome. I wanted to throw that in for you. So like they partner with Starbucks, or I think they partner with Lyft or Uber. Lyft. Sorry. So I mean, I'd love to hear from the rest of you. Like, where do you know where? Okay, we've gotten it. Executives. This is far we're going to go. This is the limit. How do you define the limit, and how do you find that partner that can pick up that next experience and take it further, and maybe help them bring them back one day?
Is there a limit? I think it's continuous involvement. Like, when is enough enough? I think customers are always demanding more. I think Phil and Dirk also said it about, Gen Zs want more. They're willing to give data for more exchange, and you've got to continuously be delivering value. Otherwise, people won't continue to come back to your brand. So I think for us, enough is never enough. I think the more we can do, the better for our customers.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think the programs just evolve. They never reach a certain stage and say, okay, we are done. They just change. They evolve because your customer's changing, the generations are changing. So I think you keep up with who your customer is, you evolve your benefits to cater to that customer to really show that growth, because you always have goals to grow your business year after year. So.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, obviously no business is going to be like, all right, you're spending too much money with us, stop. But I think, when you're looking at, the continued effort of getting more wallet share, right? And they might, coming from a world of data, right? They might be spending they might be considered Michael Kors' top 20% of customers, but they also might be another brand's top customers too. They're just really heavy in the category, right? And that's what's really interesting about making sure you're leveraging good data, maybe external data if you don't have it, to understand your share of wallet, because they could, through your own CRM, look like your best customer, but they also might just be your competitor's best customers too. So that's one thing to think about. The second thing is retention, right? Obviously, you need to not only acquire through loyalty programs and just loyalty in general, but it's the retention that's also important too. So I think most brands are going to be on the defensive, like, hey, we already have this customer here. How do we keep them while we're also acquiring as well? So I don't think that the game ever ends, frankly. You just want to make sure you're retaining and growing, but also staying abreast of the emerging trends that are going out there, so you don't become irrelevant.
I think there's opportunity to add ancillary as well, right? So obviously the core, what we do is we sell tickets. We sell you a flight from Atlanta to New York, right? But then we also can offer you a rental car. We offer you travel insurance. We can offer you a cruise. We can offer you a vacation package. Or we can offer you partnerships and earning miles with Starbucks. So I think there's always opportunity to expand to ancillary areas. I do think they need to make sense for your customer, right? For us, it's really about being a travel concierge service, so not just offering the flight, but how do we offer you end-to-end travel services, which really make sense and resonate with our customers.
Not working, yes. There's this phrase going around in the loyalty space, like surprise and delight, and I think like you'll need to keep surprising to keep it fresh, basically. Any more questions?
Hello. I'm just curious how often you guys are looking at your engagement data and changing your strategy based on who's actually responding and engaging with your communication.
I can start with that. So we look at it on a daily basis, if not more. We are always looking at who is engaging with our products, who's clicking, what are they clicking on, what are those demographics, and we're continually iterating. So I think a huge part of why we've been successful is really having this test and learn mindset. Granted, the two products that I'm here talking about as part of our loyalty package are new products. So there's a lot that we can do to continue to evolve and iterate, but we do, everything from monthly releases to small minor enhancements to large features, but we are continually, every single day, looking at that data. We are surveying customers. We are going out doing some more qualitative research. We are in the test labs ourselves. We actually created an entire aircraft test lab at our campus in Atlanta. We have simulate the aircraft experience. We have the onboard Wi-Fi and 200 in-flight entertainment screens in our Atlanta office, and my team is in there every single day looking at the product and looking at ways to improve it.
Very interesting. Do you have like an example of something that you iterated based on the data that you saw?
Oh, do I? Yeah, that's a good, it's a good question. So one thing we saw was around for our DeltaSync Wi-Fi experience, which is our Wi-Fi portal reimagined, as I've been talking about. We were getting a lot of feedback around customers not being able to remember their SkyMiles credentials to log in, right? And so we did a couple of things. We updated to make your login persistent. So of course, using cookies, we're able to then, you can enter your information once and we can remember you. And something that is upcoming, which was just recently announced, so I'm excited I can talk about it here, is you're now gonna be able to log in with your Fly Delta app. So if you've, yes, it's a little clap for that. Thank you in the front row here. As 85% of our customers using Wi-Fi are on their mobile devices, and a vast majority of those, again, being SkyMiles members, have the Fly Delta app. So there was a huge pain point around, hey, I just scanned my boarding pass with the app. I'm logged in here, but I get on board and try to access Wi-Fi, and y'all don't know my credentials. So we're really excited. That should be coming up in a summer release.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's daily, like you said. We are looking at metrics, whether it's email communication, SMS communication, clienteling, things like that. We look at it, but weekly is where we report it, but we are looking at daily and then understanding if there's any variances in what we see versus what we expect, then we dig deeper into what's going on.
I think we look at the data daily, but I think in order to make strategic decisions off that data, I think two things. One, we'd consider multi-channel. I don't think you'd want to make big strategic decisions about your program based on, like, say, just email data. You need to consider the whole customer journey. And the second is trends. Like, we don't want to just look at it like a week, like, let's say, email tanks for a week. We don't want to change our complete strategy over that. So I think it's a combination of breadth and depth. I think we kind of tend to look at before we make strategic decisions.
Also imagine you can't iterate too fast because it will actually change the data, right? So you have to introduce one change, look at the data, do another change, because otherwise you don't know what caused what.
Yeah, and I think there's always, especially in our businesses, there's always seasonality, right? So yes, it may not be doing as well as last week or not last month, but this is how April it usually does, right? So things like that, just to be cognizant about the macro situation.
All right, I think we got time for one final question, if anyone has any.
Hey, so you mentioned partnerships and personalization. My question is, how do you evaluate the value that your partners are bringing to your consumers? So, for instance, I'm kind of thinking of it in terms of like a long tail. So, do you focus on strategic partners that might be appealing to a mass market, or are you long tailing and trying to personalize partnerships for specific consumers, which might have individually less value, but a stronger alignment with consumers?
I'll go. I mean, obviously with MasterCard in our card portfolios, right? That strategic partnership is important, right? And it is case by case because we work with many brands, so it really is about understanding the affinity, what the objectives is of the brand and what they're looking to achieve. Obviously, we're trying to create that. I know it's cliche, but that 1 + 1 = 3 effect with your partnerships, with your strategic partnerships. But I think it's about balancing, giving them a rich reward with a seamless experience. When we're thinking about our strategic partnerships, like we have a partnership with Expedia, right? And a consumer can go in there and redeem, points while booking travel on the same experience, right? It's seamless, it's easy, and it creates potentially with travel that priceless experience for them. So we work specifically with that brand to make sure that that specific program is tailored to their consumer, right? But at the same time, there is value from the breadth of it, right? There is a lot of value from our perspective there as well. So it is case by case at the brand level, the way that we look at it, but very important to make sure you have the right partnership.
Yeah, I would say from the Delta standpoint, I mean, we're really focused on other premium brands that are hyper-focused on customer and experience, right? We want to make sure that we're partnering with top-tier brands in their respective categories that our customers know and love. For the most part, they will appeal to a majority of customers, not all. I don't think you're ever going to hit all, but it's really important to us how they treat their customers, what type of brand they are. Are they going to be willing to work with us? Do they have the same values that Delta does? I think that's really important, and that's something that we over-index on when looking at a partner.
Yes, I think completely agree. We do look at, okay, what are the interests of our customer? What's going to complement the brand? And then figure out which are the brands in this space. For instance, for Veronica Beard, we just launched a partnership with La Toile, which is a tennis brand. And it makes sense because our customer is playing tennis in the summer. So things like that. What makes sense and what's the timing of it also, which is most relevant to the customer. But it all starts with her.
All right. Well, I think we could talk about loyalty for another hour and still find new niches to talk about. But I want to thank our panelists for coming out here all the way. And also thank you all for coming, and please have a drink at the bar. I think Dan still wanted to say a final word, no? All right, we'll wrap it up.
It was just the drink at the bar. You nailed it.